from the cycle and trapped for Wall knows how long. You could set them free, nowhere in particular. Just free to go Wall knows where. Think of how many new lives and new journeys could start this very moment. It's all in your hand. I know you are the right person to decide the fate of so many. You helped bring me closer to WoW, and I believe
Well,
WoW
someone's gonna be
delivered you to
disappointed
this
whatever I
moment,
pick.
this decision. It has been an honor to be along for the journey.
Alright, save again, not that it matters. Let's see, what shall we do?
Of course.
Alright. Where is the machine, by the way? Ah, this way. Before I go there, what about those things that appeared briefly over there? I guess that was me scattering his soul, maybe? Yeah, okay. And he left no loot too. Alright. Let's see what happens. You understand how it works, device for directing souls. As a ghost, it will be a simple matter to influence that direction. Though as big as the machine is, it may be the last thing you will ever do. Speak the command to activate the machine. You have only moments before the souls will be sent to the Adra vein. Alright, what shall we do? We can send the souls back into the reincarnation circle. They didn't deserve what happened to them. We can return the souls to the bodies they were intended for, but that will fuck everyone up. It will make a lot of people happy, but on the other hand, some of them are feral, some of them are who knows what. You can entropically disintegrate the souls, ending their existence. I'm not sure why you would do that. You can distribute the essence to existing souls to strengthen them, to make super souls. Again, not sure why. And you can disperse the souls to an unknown location, which is what Wild wants. I think I will do that. You close your eyes and expand your perception outwards, taking the immense totality of the tens of thousands of souls orbiting the chamber. Alright. Won the game! And we send them to the unknown.
At your command, the ancient device became your instrument, spinning to life with deafening resonance and gathering up the swirling essence like thread on a great spindle. There, in the pale pulsing glow of the machine that set you on this path long ago, you summoned all your strength, focusing on your objective and blocking out all else. With a single concussive blast that rocked the chamber and sent you tumbling to the ground, you freed the souls from their stasis. Exhausted, your consciousness slipping away, your last sight was of the machine, dark and dormant. Then your eyes closed, and sleep welcomed you at long last. After coming to and searching for some time, you discovered the route Theos used to enter Sun and Shadow, and embarked on a long and arduous ascent back to the surface. You emerged in Terra Evron after days of tunneling through the rubble Theos had left behind, and when you stepped into the daylight, you were faced with a different Deerwood than the one you had left. At your direction, the souls of the Hollowborn, long lost to the people of Deerwood, were sent to a place or places unknown for reasons as mysterious as the god who suggested it. No sooner had the mystery of their whereabouts been solved than it was renewed, a new riddle for someone yet to be revealed, or perhaps for no one at all. For the people of Deerwood, the question would linger as it always had, for even the truth was beyond belief. One day, the Hollow Births had stopped with as little explanation as they had started. For all their joy at the legacy's end, Deerwoodans would have to content themselves with their own theories as to the how and why of it all. But perhaps this was as well intended. Lord Radric's zeal had brought him back to life once, but it would not do so again. Radric's destruction at your hands spelled the end of his suffocating rule over Gilded Vale and the surrounding area. In his absence, the village prospered, becoming a popular destination for new settlers anxious to leave Defiance Bay after the riots. Without a nearby ruler, it also grew more wild, with many settlers moving on as soon as they'd arrived, turned off by lawlessness that was excessive even by Deerwoodan standards. Nevertheless, despite the challenges of living there, Gilded Vale had survived and would continue to survive for the foreseeable future. Following the assassinations of Duke Avar Wolfgren and Lady Webb, Defiance Bay was thrown into political upheaval. In the ensuing weeks, the streets had become the domain of looters and blackguards. Few dared to step outside their own doors alone or unarmed. But once the dozens had regrouped in the wake of the riots, they quickly put an end to the criminal activity, patrolling the streets in droves and administering their brand of law on any perceived offenders. They also took the opportunity to depose the weakened Knights of the Crucible from their position of authority, branding them traitors to the people for their actions during the riots. Whatever knights weren't stoned to death in front of their keep were forced into exile. The external contingent of knights stationed at Fleetbreaker Castle would remain there, their high justice plotting the city's recapture. The dozens would soon find themselves overwhelmed by the problems of a leaderless metropolis, and in the days and months ahead, Defiance Bay remained on the brink of collapse. Though the machine atop Ter Noaneth had been disabled, it had not seen its last use. Heritage Hill was rebuilt, and no sooner had the first families moved in to resettle the district than members of the Leaden Key, acting under standing orders from their Grand Master, climbed the tower and reactivated the machine.
That was bullshit.
The initiate slew a handful of the new settlers under cover of night, and watched as history repeated itself, the victims reanimating and devouring the survivors. After this second incident, the district would remain abandoned. The Duke's assassination at the apparent hands of an animancer had caused catastrophic rioting in the streets of Defiance Bay. But those who had escaped the melee in the palace hearings remembered the testimonies of the strange guest who had shown up that day and absolved animancy, implicating
that was also unexpected.
Key instead.
Good.
The rumor spread quickly, and soon the popular belief was that the assassin had been a Leaden Key spy. When the legacy had lifted, people came to see it not as a sign that the riots had been according to the god's wishes, as Theos had hoped, but as a confirmation that animancy had never been the source of the problem in the first place. Deerwoodans instead convinced themselves that the riots had somehow purged Defiance Bay of Leaden Key spies, and that the end of Widewind's legacy was their well-deserved reward. The rage against animancers was quickly forgotten, and those who had survived were permitted to return to Brackenbury Sanitarium and rebuild it so they might resume their studies. The fortress of Cadnua emerged as a bastion of security in the midst of an untamed land, becoming the envy of every thane and earl in Deerwood. Legend grew over time of its impregnability, and stories of formidable invaders easily scattered by the keep's defenses became popular around the hearths of Deerwoodanians. Likewise, it also became a beacon to travelers, merchants, and visiting dignitaries alike.
I could have done more with the
Reputed
fortress.
as the finest fortress in all Deerwood, people would journey from near and distant lands alike to experience its fabled hospitality and grandeur. After the death of the Master below, a strange quiet fell over the endless paths of Oddnua. The attacks on the fortress above ceased, Oddnua's silent titan the closest remaining thing to a master in its musty, forgotten passages. Palagina had gone against the Duke's Bell's orders by inventing a new trade arrangement with the Anamenfath to accommodate the recovering Deerwoodan market. With the Deerwood's people still weakened by Widewind's legacy, the Valian republics easily pushed their would-be competitors out of the market. For her outrageous insubordination and audacity, Palagina was banished from the republics. She traveled north in the eastern reach, avoiding Valian ports and entering the ranks of the kind wayfarers.
Oh, too
Despite
bad.
her bravery and dedication to those in her care, her strange appearance made her feel like an outsider wherever she went. Haravius took his leave of the party and, after his first bath in years, returned to his nomadic lifestyle. With his homesickness expunged, he found renewed joy and tranquility in his wandering survey of the wilderness. For the first time in his life, he ventured beyond sight of the mountains of Glonfath. During his travels, he penned numerous journals and sketches detailing his travels through frozen tundra, searing desert, and tropical forests. Wherever he went, Haravius left behind stories of the Autumn Druid, a temperamental, one-eyed wise man of the forest, known to bring food to lost travelers and unusual advice to anyone willing to ask him a question. Adair chose not to return home to Gilded Vale. Still most comfortable far from cities, he settled in Deerford, which, like many towns in the Deerwood, was beginning the slow process of rebuilding. Believing now that it was the obligation of Kith to be the leaders their gods had not, Adair was soon named mayor of the town, and under his guidance, Deerford soon began to prosper. He expelled the last of the Scanites from the area and drew new settlers with the offer of land, a trick he had learned from someone he otherwise preferred to forget. With each passing day, Deerford would come to more closely resemble the Gilded Vale of Adair's childhood, the one worthy of its name. When the dust settled in sun and shadow, Aloth looked upon the remains of Theos Ixarchanon, his former master. He saw where the Grand Master had gone wrong and what would be required to undo the harm Theos had wrought. With a flick of his wrist, he burned Theos's robe, headdress, and every other symbol of the man's power. Never again, he vowed, should Kith live in fear and blind obedience to an authority they did not understand. Armed with the knowledge and courage he had gained on his journeys with the Watcher, he set out on a long and lonely task of dismantling the Leaden Key. With the Watcher's goals accomplished and his own vows fulfilled, Kanorua sailed back to Rawattai, thinking on the lessons his travels had provided him. By the time he landed at Tekoa, he understood what his path must be. Standing before the Lore College, Kanorua explained that the tablet he sought had been destroyed, and so a true interpretation of the Tonvi Oratoa could no longer exist. The people of Rawattai would have to create their own. He described the many strange things he had seen in his travels, and announced his intent to pursue the accumulation of knowledge abroad, seeking answers to new questions. True to his word, Kana soon set sail on yet another expedition, and in Tekoa, his passionate accounts inspired many to follow in his footsteps. With Theos defeated and the souls released from sun and shadow, healthy children were born once again in the Deerwood. The grieving mother sought a place where she might do penance for the birthing bell. She returned to Deerford, where, to the astonishment of the villagers, she delivered the first healthy child in over a decade. She remained there, and with each new birth, she saw a measure of hope restored to the Deerwood and a measure of grace for her own troubled past. Durrance used Magrin's strength only until Theos had been cast from the world, and then swore off her influence entirely. Regret came to weigh heavily on his mind, and a man who had never previously lacked for words or opinions came to embrace silence and contemplation. He
I hope the expansion has to do with
destitute, searching now not for the reason
his
for
quest, or maybe
silence, but
going
for
against the gods.
For revenge. The charred robes he continued to wear as a reminder that he had been burned by his goddess.
That was one of the most interesting
flames of the Godhammer. In her 4-month
facets
journey
of the
back
story.
to Nositoc, Sagani found that the landscape she traveled had become strangely colorless, the food bland and unsatisfying. She watched the Deerwood, Glonfath, the Valian republics, and the lands beyond slide by with a dull sense of dread. She returned home to great celebration, yet the words of joy and congratulations rang hollow to her. Old beloved songs sounded toneless. the rituals of changing seasons became drudgery, and Sagani experienced her life back in Masuk as if in someone else's skin. So she fought to feel the worth of her actions, or at least to let her village feel them. She led ever longer and more ambitious hunts, mentoring the younger rangers who followed
dark.
her. On one such expedition, her party was beset by a blizzard, and she pressed on where her companions turned back. She did not return to Masuk. For you, the death of Theos brought an end to your waking visions, and a silence to the whispers of the past. In their absence, you were able to sleep. The questions of a distant lifetime ceased to trouble your soul. All that remained was what to make of the answer. But at the moment, there was little to be done, and the matter would have to wait. A long journey loomed ahead.
Okay then, a long journey to where? Who knows? Alright, thus ends the Pillars of Eternity, which was everything I hoped for and more when I backed the game. I like the overarching story, I guess. The concept that the Enwithans saw the world in chaos, try to find the creators or gods or whatever you want to call them. And since they couldn't, they decided to instill order by making some gods themselves, by giving up their lives basically. That was pretty good. The characters were mostly rather shallow, except for Durance and the Grieving Mother, which had more meat, but even then I think I expected more there. More from the banter, more from their story, more from the characters in general. Although I liked most of them. The graphics were great, the OST was also fantastic. I didn't like the stronghold because basically you built it and nothing happened. You had the dungeon that you could imprison people, but I didn't find any people to imprison. I think there was supposed to be people coming or something, but that never happened. No one attacked me because I was too strong. I built the defenses quickly. It was kinda worthless. The endless paths were okay. As I said before, I'm not a big fan of dungeon crawling, but that was well done. It had some interesting story here and there, but generally it's okay, I guess. Nothing great, nothing bad. The third act was, for me, a bit less than the first two. Twin Elms didn't have as much to do, and you didn't get too involved like you did in the Gilded Vale and Defiance Bay. Defiance Bay, I think, was the best part for me. A ton of quests everywhere, a lot of factions, although even then I thought they could have done more with the factions. It was basically 2 quests and that's it. They're with that faction now. They could have been deeper and more complicated. All in all, anyway, a great game. In conclusion, I would definitely recommend buying it, and I will definitely back any other game Obsidian wishes to make, but then I always liked Obsidian very much. So thank you for watching, subscribe, like, leave a comment if you want to, and I will see you in the next series, which will be The Witcher 3. See you next time.